do that on the live.
Yeah.
Maybe you will. Coming in, another High Vibe Conversations. I'm your host, Ambassador Terry Earthwind Nichols, along with the marvelous
and the Veterans Nichols.
And two very cool people, Jenny Langren, Shel Shapiro's here. We're talking about something like we do every week, something very interesting. And this is pertinent right now. There's a lot of this going on. We're talking about anxiety. Linda?
Yeah, man. Whew. Lots of anxiety for a while now with the whole pandemic thing, just for starters, right? And anytime we try something new, right, and jump through the hoops of the fear and the anxiety and yeah. And I always like talking non-duality. So like duality, there's this and this, you know, you're happy, you're sad, right? That kind of the opposites. And in my world, everything just is. So, you know, anxiety is, would you say anxiety is an emotion, Jenny?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's just an emotion. And our emotions can really take off on us. So noticing what's coming up instead of reacting to what's coming up keeps us in our power. You agree?
I agree. Good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw a question out. What is the opposite of anxiety? Because there's actually an exercise called, you know, be your word for the day. So if the word or if the emotion anxiety is coming up, then my question is, what's the opposite of anxiety? So Jenny, think back to the last moment of anxiety. And then what is the opposite of that for you?
For me, that is peace.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
How about you, Shel? Oh, sorry. Did you want to say more, Jenny?
No, I'm good. I have plenty, but let's get to it.
All right. Think back to the last time you were anxious, Shel, and for you, what's the opposite word?
I don't have to think back because I do have some anxiety going on right now. So that's an easy one for me. The opposite of that is calm. So not so dissimilar from what Jenny shared about peace. It's definitely the calmness for me.
Okay, cool. So back to Jenny. Jenny, what does when you go back to that last time of anxiety, what did that look like? What did it feel like? Not the story around it, what caused it in your mind. Just what did it look like? What did it feel like? What did it feel like in your body? What are your descriptors?
Yeah, it's like a tightness, a tension, and a sense of confusion there as well.
Nice. And how do you know that it was confusion? With like brain fog, or how did confusion actually show up?
Well, the confusion was in like, where is this coming from?
Okay.
Where is this connected? Yeah. And where do I go from here?
Okay. Yeah. So in your healing path, you've learned to go deeper, dig deeper for the cause. Like where is this coming from? Rather than reacting to the anxiety.
Right.
Or that is a reaction, right? It's just a reaction from a place of healthy detachment. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. And so then, quick describe the anxiety and then take us into the peace. How does that look to you? How do you feel it and stuff like that? So review your anxiety and then take us to the peace.
Are you still talking to me?
Yeah.
So that looks like, first, you know, my first reaction is I want to hide from it or squash it or, you know, like get away from it. And then it's more of it opening up, accepting, recognizing that this is a part of me and it's really trying to tell me something, and looking at it more like a teaching and a lesson,
Mhm.
and allowing space for that and more sitting with it, like sitting
Yeah.
with those emotions and listening. What is this teaching me?
Yeah, that's your new process. I love it. So back to the last time you felt anxiety. So what did that look like? How did it feel? Where did you feel it in your body? And then take us to the opposite piece. What's that like? Where do you feel that in your body? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I just shared the journey towards that, and then the piece is sometimes there's like self-forgiveness in there, and it's letting go, and it's letting go of the outcome of things and letting go of what was, and its presence.
Mm-hmm.
And there's appreciation and gratitude.
Mm-hmm. So with the anxiety, it's a tightness, and with the peace, it's what?
It's very relaxing.
Where do you feel the relaxation? In the same place you felt the tightness from the anxiety?
Mm,
Where do you feel the peace?
my whole body.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. How about you, Shell? So anxious, where did you feel it?
When I'm feeling anxious, and again, I'm feeling it right now, so I can tell you what's going on for me right now. There's a tightness in my throat.
Throat. Okay.
There's
And
there's also like a knot in my upper back. Like I feel a tension there. So I feel like a pressure of something trying to like push me to do something that I might not want to do.
okay.
Go ask your next part so I don't just dive into it.
Yeah. And then the next part is your flip word was calm.
Yeah.
So where do you feel that?
With the calm, it's like that knot in my throat disappears. So it's like a loosening of my whole jaw and throat area so that it feels open and for lack of a better word, I'm going to use Jenny's word too, relaxed. But it's definitely my throat area opens back up, and I don't feel that knot or distress anymore. And then in my back, it kind of like dissipates. So it doesn't maybe necessarily always go away because I do tend to like clench up a lot. But I don't necessarily feel that ongoing pressure right there pushing me and forcing me into something that I might not be ready for.
Cool. Do you ever feel like you're pushing yourself into things? And
All
does
the
that
time.
feel different?
All the time. Yeah, that's the whole feel the fear and do it anyway feeling of like, I might not be ready for this, but I'm just going to throw myself out there and see what happens. And so part of that tightness too can come from me like my body wanting to hold back, but me knowing that I'm ready and prepared to take the leap and
Right.
deal with everything as whatever happens is going to happen. But my body automatically goes to protect itself, and I think that's like the tension of the recoil a little bit.
Right. So Jenny, back to Jenny, what comes up for you when you hear the word anxiety and you think through the stories of your life up until this point? What comes up for you is sort of like that number one story, that number one moment of maybe like the worst anxiety you've ever encountered? Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's two that's coming up for me. So the first is the worrying about the future and the future of my children.
Yeah, right.
And the second is the anxiety of denying myself to make other people happy.
Oof. right?
They're equally,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
And what's a story that comes up for you of peace? Like that number one time in your life where the peace was just huge. It was unbelievable. It was the most peace you've ever encountered, felt, whatever.
Oh, it's hard for me to say the number one, but
Just like,
yeah, like the moment when I think the moment when I received the understanding of my worth.
nice.
There was a moment in the midst of my struggle that it just came to me, the understanding of my worth. And in that moment of fully accepting myself, I no longer worried about what other people would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Was that in the woods or that day in the woods or
yeah,
later?
that was a day in the woods, but just very just before my divorce.
Okay. So it was like, I'm not okay with this marriage, and not being scared, just almost empowered to go home and say those words, speak your truth.
Yeah.
To the point where you crumpled to the floor in doing it, but you kept doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very powerful story.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And then understanding in regards of my children, just accepting that I cannot control the future. I think that anxiety and worry is often connected to our future, whereas depression often is connected to things that happen in our past. So for me to understand that my way of reclaiming my power is presence, because I cannot control the future. However, I create it. I am a creator. I created being present with my children today. So this is the future, and we're building it here and now. So that was my way of reclaiming my power, and tremendous peace to come to terms with that.
I love it. Creating her story. I love it. Okay, how about you, Shell? What comes up for you at the moment of that off the chart anxiety? Which memory comes up for you?
There's not just one, but one in particular. It's probably not the top one, but one that's coming up at the moment. There was one time, probably around circa 2012, 2013. And I was on the subway heading to work in the morning, and I had a panic attack on the train.
Wow.
And it was one of those situations where I thought in my mind, okay, if I saw anybody else having this right now, I would pull the emergency brake. I would give them my seat. I would ask them if they need help. I would do all the things. And in the moment of my panic attack, I was also like, I wonder if anybody can see this, because nobody's doing a damn thing.
Right? Like caregiving, like as if, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's like the resentment that I sometimes feel with people pleasing, which I know is a totally different topic. But in terms of the anxiety, it was just so crippling for me that day, that like just the dread of going to the office, I couldn't even make it all the way. I got off it. I felt I was overcome with like, not a paralysis, but like a nausea. And it was throughout my entire body. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I definitely had that tightness in my chest, but I felt that pressure throughout my entire body, along with the nausea, to the point where like I got off at the next stop, and because I didn't want to get sick on the subway, and nobody offered me their seats. So I was like, right, I'm just gonna do it. If I'm late, I'm late. I'm just gonna navigate this because this is what I need to do. And I stood there near the trash can, which is always gross in the subway. And I was like, if I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna do it here, where at least like I can take care of myself and have a little bit more space. Pre-COVID,
Right.
of course. So I wasn't like worried about other people around me necessarily. And I didn't care what anybody thought at that point. I was just like, I feel sick. Like I made myself sick from this anxiety,
Right.
this fear of going into the office. So I got off the train, and after a few minutes, that nausea passed, but I still wasn't completely calm. I still was super tense. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to have a me day. And after a certain amount of time on the train platform, I got back on a train in the other direction and I went back home.
Oh,
And
cool.
I didn't actually go into the office because I just didn't feel well enough to.
Sure.
So that's not necessarily my most calm day, but that was definitely an eye-opening day for me of like me first.
Yeah, good. I love it.
Yeah.
So if you think of a story of calm, then you just like totally flipped that story. So that going back home turned you calm, I suppose, in like, hey, I'm gonna have a me day. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But one where a day where I felt even more calm than that, because that was just the beginning. That was just me recognizing that I needed to take that time.
Yep.
But in a moment where I 100% felt calm throughout my body, and didn't have any anxiety or worries, is probably during some of my Seattle trips, like when I'm with my support system, really.
Yeah.
And in nature. Like, so I'm grounding myself and surrounded by people that I like, know, and trust, that I trust implicitly with my life and my well-being, and to protect my thoughts too, so that I don't have to worry about what somebody is going to think of me if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And so that just completely is eliminated and goes out the door, and I can just be myself completely. There's a moment, I think in this past year, when I was out there, and we were walking down a hill towards the water, towards the main house. And like, there were, I think 4 of my friends lined up chatting amongst themselves ahead of me. It was down a hill. And I remember taking a picture of that moment. And I was so at peace walking down the hill, just watching them all like chit-chatting. And I was like, it doesn't get any better than this. Like,
Nice.
you look at these people, and I'm not even like immersed in them right now. I'm behind them, and I still feel this calmness. And just thinking about that picture in that moment says so much.
Yeah, I love it. And that going to the office it's completely the opposite, going into the opposite environment. Yeah, those are great stories. All right. Well, thanks, guys. That was so good. Terry, you want to wrap it up?
Man, I just love it, hanging out with smart people. Just love this, and it continues to this day, and just fantastic. Thank you for stopping in, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening in to us and a little talk about anxiety. See you next time.
Bye.